And yes, we are the Coalition. Loud and proud, outrage porn free, beach explosion free, civilly disobedient radio on the web at coalitionradio.us, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at coalition_radio. We podcast on the worldwide global Coalition Network, soon up and coming, coalitionradio.org. And of course, we blog. Check out coalitionradio.us this week. We've got new entries from Bella Robinson, provocative, timely, thought-provoking, and, of course, David Broussard's latest comments on a fall from grace about a certain church downtown. Dave Fisher, he's a guest mindsetter on golocalprov.com on an issue we'll be covering extensively later in the show. That would, of course, be about legislative grants. Dave, what's that sound I hear?
Gee, Pat. What sound would that be?
That's the sound of Donald Trump.
He's not a war hero.
Presidency crashing to a halt.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured.
Oh,
okay? I hate
boy.
Oh, for the love of God.
I really cringe every time I hear that.
Right. What do we say about him? He's too stupid.
Not smart enough to be a fascist.
There you go. I thought for a long time that he would self-destruct somewhat intentionally, a la Ross Perot style, because I never believed it his intention to actually run for the presidency of the United States. He's just taking the circus act that is Donald Trump to the next logical extreme. I think today... I think he stepped in it. He went a little bit too far. I mean, his comments are disgusting. It's not even appropriate to joke about.
And say what you want. Be as opposed to McCain politically as you want. You can't deny the man's service to his country,
right? And
you can't deny the hell that he went through in that service,
right? I mean, I detest McCain's politics. I think he's single-handedly destroyed this nation's foreign policy. On the other hand, he is a legitimate war hero who did things, withstood things, was surrounded by things that are unimaginable to civilians like me who've never been involved in the United States military.
Torture to Trump is if his collar is overstarched on his $300 shirt,
or if the comb over gets moved. At this point, the Republican Party needs to step up. All right, say this guy's a sideshow. Recognize that buried in all the crap are a couple of good points, but it seems like we call it Farrakhan disease, right? He makes sense for about 7 or 8. Well, I used to say 7 or 8 minutes, but a couple of minutes into it, and then he just essentially falls apart. Clearly, he's an egotistical, narcissistic twit.
And there's nothing that an egotistical, narcissistic twit hates more than another egotistical, narcissistic twit.
As a wise man once said, I resemble that remark. Speaking of acting like a twit, Governor Ray Monday has chosen this moment in time as Rhode Islanders continually be crushed by the latest round of tax increases as they continue to suffer under the oppressive regime called the Rhode Island state government under the rule of Herr Mattiello, Paulie Walnuts, to invoke a 33% raise to the folks who have helped run this ship into the ground.
Yeah.
Tone deaf doesn't even really touch on it, does it?
It really doesn't. I mean, 33% raises for 5 or 6 people. I mean, she wants to give a 33% raise to the director of the DOT who just had several high-level employees put on leave. Right. Without their this is not, I'm taking a leave. This is like, no, you're going on leave.
Right. They were, as my wife would say, they were put in the uncooperative chair. You look at the situation and you're aghast. I mean, out here in the dreaded private sector, raises are given to people who actually display merit on their job. But the contention, of course, is that we have to be at the same level to get the same high level of talent, as Massachusetts and Connecticut, to which I responded in the Urinal today that, well, does that mean that we can have the same schools as Massachusetts or Connecticut? Does that mean we can have the same infrastructure as Massachusetts? Does that mean we can have the same tax structure as Massachusetts?
The justification given is just so intellectually dishonest.
Right.
About, Massachusetts DOT director makes X, and we need to compete with that. Well, he has a staff that's 3 times larger, a state that's 3 times larger, Connecticut, same thing. State's twice as big. Staff is twice as big. God knows what they do with the roads in Connecticut.
Well, I mean, and then there's that little thing that they're actually, you ready for this? They're good at their job. We continually are reminded of one simple tenet in terms of life in Rhode Island. Citizens of the state of Rhode Island are two things. Number one, they're in a revenue opportunity. They are a human barcode waiting to be scanned by the Rhode Island Department of Revenue. Number two, they are a necessary inconvenience to justify, in a sense, the incredible bureaucracy, the apparatchik-driven structure, the even pre-Brezhnev reform Soviet atmosphere that pervades this state. We are just a necessary inconvenience, and we dare not get in the way of making sure that the true 1% in the state, is the Rhode Island government, right? The true 1% are able to realize their dreams, have the retirement security that Gina is so concerned about for their employees, that we just need to get out of the way. As they say, walk along, nothing to look at here. Just, by the way, here's where you write your check. It's disgusting. And on that note, let's keep it rolling. On that note, of course, we have the continued efforts of that said regime to shove the Providence Stadium where the sun don't shine. Now, this week, in a quick synopsis, this week we had the Barely Listening Tour conducted by Dr. Steinbeck.
I like to call it the Who's Listening to Who tour.
Right. We had that. Mr. Norton continues to work in the trenches and permit a noble effort of opposition, working along with Mr. Emke, dozens of other concerned citizens. So my hats are off to them, despite the efforts of the Secretary of State to harass said Mr. Norton. Lots of lovely letters sent out to the people at the Red Sox. Not so lovely letters you saw them on our website at coalitionradio.us. Kate Nagel, of course, did a wonderful piece for Go Local. Again, it's clear. Rather than testify in that letter to and support the civic engagement of Mr. Norton et al., it is seen as a threat. Never forget that your state government loathes you. And to which end I have to publicly announce and acknowledge that Senator Beth Mora, my former state senator in sleepy little Slumberland, and I now have a bet, Dave. The bet is very straightforward. I believe that the forces of good, and it's odd to be in a position where I'm actually displaying some form of hope and optimism. It's certainly not like me.
It is a bit of a character shift.
It is a bit of a character shift, but I do believe that the forces of good, the White Wizard, will prevail. I do believe that the stench that permeates this project is enough to bring it down, not because government is going to do the right thing. They're just fraidy pants. And they're afraid of the recriminations and the prospect of citizens lined up with torches marching up Smith Hill. Senator Mora, of course, given her years of expertise in government politics, is a tad more cynical than I. We have bet the coffee house of our choice. There's really no end to this, so I'm not sure when we'll collect. It'll either finally die the twisted sort of death it does for a form of civil, chemotherapy that's taking place at the hands of Mr. Norton, Mr. Emke et al., or it will be built over the objection. So I'm acknowledging it publicly, Beth. As anyone knows, I don't pay my debts, but I pay my bets. So we are on. We've got a special individual joining us on the line right now. One of the original guests of the coalition joining us live. Yes, the dulcet tones of Pink Floyd is the Professor Mike Riley. Everybody in Rhode Island should know him at this point. Principal of Beach Street Financial Services, a frequent mindsetter and contributor to GoLocalProv.com. Professor Riley is going to teach a course today in what we call Default for Dummies. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's great to hear you. It's been far too long. What's most astonishing is during that extended period of your absence from the show, absolutely nothing has changed whatsoever in the civic, financial, legal structure of either the Providence pension system, OPB, state of Rhode Island. Nothing has changed, has it?
Well, no.
In terms of getting better, I should say.
The administration has changed.
On the same day that our Providence Journal had a headline that reset defaulted, they managed to miss the fact that their own capital city is full.
Right. So,
And
yeah. Oops. Well, okay. Let's start at the basics because you and I inhabit some of the same spaces in the cloud on places like Facebook and Twitter, and there are those people, residents of Rhode Island, many of whom have philosophical ties, if you will, to the sort of social liberal Democrats, quote unquote, in power, and I use that term loosely, who decry efforts to depict the financial situation of either Providence or the state of Rhode Island as paranoid conspiracies. You and I know differently because we don't let emotions get in the way. We look at the facts. So first of all, let's start from the basics. Which system is in default, and specifically what has happened? What has transpired since we last spoke?
Okay, so on April 28th, the actuary for the city of Providence did a valuation of the pension fund. And in that valuation, they followed through on last year's warning to Mayor Taveras that an asset that was sitting on the books of roughly $57 million at that time and $62 million now wasn't really an asset. And thus overstating the assets in the pension plan, understating the funding ratio, and understating the pension liability. The problem is that every year they put what they owed to the pension fund, because they didn't put the money into the pension fund, they owed something to the pension fund every year as a current liability, and every year didn't pay it. And so finally, the new actuary, after Buck was fired 2 years ago, said you have to write this off. This is now a defaulted loan.
So it is not and again, I want to stress, and I've made this point every time Mike has been on the show, while this obviously reeks of politics, the specific actions, the specific illness, if you will, is not political in nature. It's strictly, as we like to say, the math. It's strictly a point of whether or not the contribution is made or not. So we're separating those two right now in our course, Defaults for Dummies. So right now, how much does the city of Providence actually owe the fund?
Well, if you go by what the actuary has just said, Providence no longer owes the fund anything.
Mm-hmm.
They simply removed $62 million in assets from the pension plan of the police, fire, and certain city workers, and added $62 million to the future liability of Providence taxpayers and called it a change.
Well, aren't you, and again, forgive my naivete here, but isn't that essentially re-amortizing the plan?
No. It is in fact money that was appropriated to the pension plan and redirected to operating the city strictly against the charter of the city and the state.
So essentially, they're doing the skim. They're pushing one side.
Well, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right. They're pushing money from one side of the balance sheet to the other, and then it's being expensed away, frittered away, and by essentially eliminating it, in the words of the great Roseanne Roseannadanna, never mind. They're just adding it to the liability without actually engaging in some form of statutory. As I said, they're not actually looking at the amortization table per se. They're just adding it to it and hoping no one notices.
Well, it's all about double talk and late payments and timing and all that stuff. But basically what it is those Ponzi schemes. They, in one whole year, sometime back before 2006, they did not put the appropriated money into the pension plan. And when it came to June 30th and the investment commission, which runs the pension assets, says, where's our money that we're supposed to be investing for our pension beneficiaries? You never gave it to us. Where is it? They said, sorry, we don't have it. We'll give you an IOU. They put that on the books as an asset. Then they paid in October. A really scary part of this is the interest that the interest rate used to discount the October late payment was in fact the discount rate used by the pension plan of 8.5%. So in effect, Providence was borrowing money for 4 months